Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts right now.
We're off to a delayed start here on Canton Confidential tonight, but we appreciate you sticking with us. Good evening. I'm Glenn Jones.
And I'm J.C. Monahan. Today was the only day court will be held this week, but it came with a big piece of information. Karen Reed's reported blood alcohol level on the day John O'Keefe died.
Reed and John O'Keefe went out drinking at 2 bars before driving him to Albert's residence. Based on testimony from medical experts, today her blood alcohol content was above the legal limit to drive. And this was hours after the prosecution says she hit O'Keefe with her vehicle.
Before we get into today's testimony, we're going to take a quick look back at what happened last week. We heard from 2 women who were with Karen Reed the morning John O'Keefe's body was found. That's Jennifer McCabe and Carrie Roberts. McCabe, to remind you, the sister of Nicole Albert and Brian Albert's wife. They owned the home at the time outside of which O'Keefe was found in the snow. And then there's Carrie Roberts, who was good friends with O'Keefe and his family.
We also heard from 2 sisters, Laura and Marietta Sullivan. They were John O'Keefe's friends, and they talked about an alleged fight between O'Keefe and Reed during a trip to Aruba for New Year's, just a few weeks before his death.
Testimony then continued with Brian Higgins. He's an ATF agent and a friend of Brian Albert. He testified he was at Brian's home on Fairview Road in Canton the night before O'Keefe's body was found. He was then asked to read off a series of texts that he had exchanged with Karen Reed, some described as flirtatious, just weeks prior to the incident. Court began today with the defense wrapping up their cross-examination of Higgins.
And today's testimony was perhaps the most wide-ranging we've seen of any day so far. Along with Higgins, we also heard from hospital workers, a blood test worker, plus 2 town workers, including the superintendent of public works.
Also testifying today was the niece and nephew of John O'Keefe. John was raising them as his own after both their parents died. John's sister, one of them. We'll have more on their testimony just a little later.
That was a really sensitive moment. But let's begin with our Kirsten Glavin. She is live for us in Denham outside Norfolk Superior Court with the big moments from today in court. Kirsten.
Yeah, Glenn, JC, we did hear a lot today from both medical and scientific experts about Karen Reed's level of intoxication throughout that morning, beginning from when she likely had her last drink, through the time she wound up in the hospital.
Direct your attention.
Back on the stand Tuesday, ATF Agent Brian Higgins, who was at the home on Fairview Road the night Officer John O'Keefe was killed. Higgins grilled by Karen Reed's defense about destroying his phone's SIM card and getting rid of his cell phone.
You knew when you were throwing that phone and the destroyed SIM card in the dumpster that from that day forward, no one would ever be able to access the content of what you and Brian Albert had discussed by text messages on your old phone, correct?
Anybody.
Higgins arguing that in July of 2022, the target of an investigation he was working on got his personal number, so he needed to change it. Reed's defense pointing out the timeline, showing that he waited until September to get a new phone.
September 29th of 2022, you changed your phone number and got a new phone. And then September 30th, the next day, you were served with the preservation order, correct?
I got the preservation order on the 30th. That's correct.
Medical experts from Good Samaritan Medical Center up next, testifying to O'Keefe's hypothermia.
Yes, 80 degrees is very cold.
And questioned about Reed's hospital visit that same morning due to a Section 12 order for mental health concerns.
So it looks like 93.93.
Blood work showing 93 milligrams per deciliter, equating to a .081 blood alcohol concentration. That's slightly above the legal driving limit. This forensic toxicologist stating at around the time Reed would have had her last drink at 12:45 a.m., tests show Reed's minimum blood alcohol concentration would have been .13 with a maximum of .29.
And it's just so that it can encompass essentially anybody within the general population, that they would be somewhere in between that lower limit and that upper limit.
Last on the stand, town employees describing snowplow routes and footage taken from town cameras during certain hours that night sent over to state police.
They were able to be exported and sent.
Now, this was the only day of court this week, and the judge did say at the end of the day that she does intend to try and elongate some of these full days by an extra half hour to try and speed this trial along. Glenn, JC.
Okay, Kirsten, thank you. Things really grind to a halt now with no court in session for the rest of the week. When we come back, we'll be joined by our courtroom insider, Sue O'Connell.
She was one of the few people to see and hear the testimony given today by John O'Keefe's niece and nephew. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Cameras and microphones were turned off during a portion of today's testimony. It was when John O'Keefe's nephew and niece took the stand. Please remember, these are minors.
And just like every other day, only a few people are allowed in the courtroom at any one time. And one of those people is our Sue O'Connell. She joins Michael Coyne, our legal analyst, here at the table as well. So, Sue, sum up the testimony from these young witnesses for us. And I'm particularly interested to know if the defense cross-examined these witnesses.
They barely did. The defense only asked a couple of questions. But I have to say, I'm trying to think just as a juror, I don't see what a lot of the benefit of putting these two kids up on the stand did. First of all, the nephew really didn't bring any new information. And I don't want to take their own individual agency away. Maybe they wanted to testify, so I'm not going to make assumptions. But as a juror, watching this young man, they were both articulate and smart and just ideal witnesses and young people. I don't know what he brought, and I think the jurors felt uncomfortable having him up there. He didn't say anything bad, really, about anything. He shared some fights that they had, which, frankly, one fight started because she was defending him against John, who was just arguing about using his iPad on vacation.
Typical, like, parent-adult-kid interaction, which didn't move the narrative forward.
Not at all. And the defense established with both on the cross that no one's hand was raised in anger at any time against anyone in the household. With the niece, I see a little bit more value to the prosecution in that she was there at the house in the morning. Remember, the nephew had a sleepaway, so he wasn't there. She was there when Karen woke her up. She was there for the phone calls. She says she heard Karen say, "Did I hit him?" Not, "I hit him. Could I have hit him?" And she was there in the morning hours, those very turbulent morning hours. I think they might have added some testimony around the Ring camera. I'm not sure how that's going to pay off in the future. But it was really a long time with them up there. And I think the jury was warm. The judge was nice to them. You could feel the O'Keefe family really putting their arms around them, both literally before the jury came in and during the testimony. But in the end, I don't know what benefit they really brought to the prosecution. And if I were a juror, I'd be wondering, why are we putting these kids through this?
What did you think, Michael? I know you weren't in the room for the niece and the nephew, but overall, here we are. We're about to wrap up another week on a Tuesday. This is where we stand. Is this where you would expect us to be at this point?
Not at all. Next week, we begin the 7th week, an extra week if you want to consider the jury selection, so 8 weeks. And only today do we finally get some evidence of blood alcohol content. The children really, I think, were unnecessary, except for the issue with respect to the Ring camera. Sue's right on that there should be video from midnight till 5 a.m., and it doesn't appear in the record yet, so that may be setting a foundation for down the road. But a lot of these witnesses, just as the children are here as well, are unnecessary. They're not moving the needle.
No, down the road. How far down the road do we have to go?
We're pretty far down the road. And I know you've been waiting a long time to see some forensic evidence. Is the evidence we heard today damning?
It is, if it's understandable by the jury. The fact is, I am familiar with it. I work with it. It's understood by lawyers how you revert back to taking a blood test and convert it to a blood alcohol content. I don't know whether that was as easily understood by the jury as it should be, because the blood alcohol level should be anywhere, at least by the testimony today, and I thought that witness was very strong, was either a 0.9, which is well over the legal limit to be driving in Massachusetts, or near levels of blackout drunk if it's close to a 0.29. That's
Unfortunately,
very high.
we have to wrap things up. We had an abbreviated version of Canton Confidential today, but as always, thank you for being with us.
We'll be back here next week with more testimony and analysis from our experts. Thanks for staying up with us tonight. For JC Monahan, I'm Glenn Jones.